So, hello, today I am talking with Laura Yamin from the NSFW podcast, and she's also a career advisor for millennial women, and she's just been up to a lot of amazing things. So, welcome, yeah, Laura.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome, you're welcome, welcome. So, tell us a little bit more about yourself and, what you do and things like that.
So, I am a career advisor for high achieving millennials.
Okay.
That's one of the main projects that I do.
Yeah.
I also have a day job, which I'm pretty open about that.
Okay.
And I love it because it provides me the stability I need so I can actually have my other passion projects, which is the career advising
hmm
and also my Not Safe for Work or NSFW podcast, which
hmm
is a twice weekly show that I get to interview people who took their career back into power.
Okay, okay, and just tell us a little bit more about the podcast. So, like, what was the inspiration behind the podcast, and like, what was like that last push that said, you know what, I just gotta get this like recorded and get it on iTunes. Like, tell us about
Yeah.
that.
So I did not discover podcasts until a year and a half ago. And I
Okay.
was actually on a temp job. I was doing busy work that I was just like filing electronic papers. And so my brain needed a break and
hmm
needed something to be engaged. So I started to listen to podcasts while I was doing the busy work.
hmm
And I discovered all these like amazing podcasts out there. But
hmm
there's a lot of dudes actually doing podcasting. And
Yes,
so
certainly.
so I felt like there was a need of other women to actually talking about areas of career. So not just entrepreneurship, but just in taking back the control of the career. That
hmm
it was not just a one path. This is what you have to do, but basically identifying what is it that I'm passionate about, what is it that I want to do, and then letting go of that toxic job or toxic career and
hmm
making that shift to what is passionate or what interests hobbies or passion projects.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
started to make that. Yeah.
Oh, sounds cool. So, like, are you still in like a temp job right now, or you have
No,
something?
I ended up getting a permanent position.
Okay.
So I'm earning really well.
Okay. Okay.
And it's a nice permanent 8 to 4, and they know about my podcast. They know
Okay.
about my other projects. I've been pretty open about that.
Okay.
And so it's been pretty cool to be able to practice some of the things I tell my clients, actually doing that, walk the talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
So
I
yeah.
get it. Like, I
Yeah.
know the job search can feel very daunting, but it can actually be fun. And
Mhm.
so I'm actually job searching again, and I'm looking at it from a place that it can be fun, that it can actually be easy.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be so strict and
Yeah.
straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember too. Like, well, I guess in a sense, I was like fortunate because I graduated university in 2009, and
Okay.
before I was done, I had already had a job like lined up. Like the day after my graduation, I had like a 9 to 5 that was like a corporate job that was set up for me to start. That didn't last very too not too long because of my personality, and I that's why and then after that I got into like the nonprofit space as well, and that didn't last too
Yeah.
long either. So now I'm a full force entrepreneur. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So is that your aim to be like a full force?
No, so I actually started in the nonprofit world, working at college for about 10 years, and I had a
Oh,
career that was pretty straightforward. But then I realized that it was toxic, and I was just not. It was triggering a perfectionism, a
hmm
trigger that's
hmm
possible. So I
hmm
finally kind of come to terms that I needed to walk away from the job.
hmm
And at the time, I was actually doing consulting work. And so I spent about a year freelance actually doing the consulting work
hmm
and being self employed. And then I quickly realized that I miss actually having a routine. I miss
hmm
going to an office that's
hmm
not my house. And I miss having a paycheck and benefits. I didn't want to work so hard to get there.
hmm
And so I had the opportunity, came up because I was doing some of this career work, that a recruiter popped in and said, "Hey, are you available? Would you be interested in this project?"
hmm
And so I finally said, "Sure, I'll look at the project." And I'm like, I'm going to apply. And I applied for other jobs. And I somehow, about 3 weeks from the email to the offer letter. So I
hmm
got the position fairly easy.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's all essentially too, because like even the jobs that like the two like real jobs I had after university were jobs that I didn't necessarily apply for. It was
Yeah.
it's just kind of who I knew at the time. So and just kind of building those connections and those relationships. Because regardless if you're looking for a job or you're an entrepreneur, it's all about relationships, right? It's all about relationship building and really putting yourself out there and connecting with other people as well. So that's really, really important.
Yeah. And so now I get to really have different projects and different passions. So I have the podcast, I have my consulting practice, and I also have, a
Hmm.
job to show up to. So it's kind of cool.
Okay, yeah. So how do you like balance all of that?
Boundaries of how much I spend my time on different things. So
Hmm.
I have to be very clear about my time.
Hmm.
So I don't take the day job, I don't take it home with me. I don't check my work email at home. I don't, none of that stuff. It
Hmm.
only gets done at a day job.
Hmm.
The same goes with the consulting practice. I don't have that much time to see a lot of clients. So I'm very, very picky about what clients I work with.
Hmm.
And with the podcast, it's been, setting up the schedule, setting up a system. So I
Hmm.
record one day a week. I set up a time during the weekend to edit and prep it up and then have it ready for the week, that
Yeah.
day of the weekend.
And it
So,
goes out on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
yeah. So it's a
Oh,
twice weekly show. Yeah.
okay, okay. And have you been liking that?
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised how much I love this project. That I wanted to, it started as a once a week project, and then I was like, no, 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 I have enough passion for it that I can actually put 2 shows a week. So it's been really cool to get to know different entrepreneurs, getting to know different other people who are in career path that are unique,
Hmm.
and then being able to really share their stories and then connecting with an audience. It's a much more intimate level than
Yes, yes, for
writing
sure.
a post
Yeah,
about it.
yes, yeah, and that's why, like, for me, I wanted to do like the video blogs because it is a way for people to connect with me, like actually see me, and be able to actually see the other person that I'm chatting with and be able to, feel as if there's a connection, because yes,
Yeah.
there is that connection through audio, but there's also that really great connection through video as well. So that's why I decided to start this video blog series. But
Yeah.
backing up to when you said that you started listening to podcasts, what podcasts were you listening to at the time?
So I listen to Just Lively, so the Lively Show.
Okay.
That's actually a female, one of
Okay.
the female shows. And I was listening to Lewis Howe's School of Greatness and
Hmm.
Entrepreneurial Fire.
Hmm.
And so they were really inspiring. They were kind of like giving me tools of what to do. And so then I realized, I listened to quite a few before I realized maybe I can do this.
Hmm.
And it took me a while to get my bearings. So how difficult it will be to launch your own podcast. There's a learning curve there, but
Hmm.
I realized that it was not as expensive or as time consuming as I thought.
Okay.
And so it took about a couple months to go from idea to execution and then launch.
Okay. Cool. Cool. And you mentioned earlier that you're a recovering perfectionist. So, like, how has this affected the entire journey of your life? Like, as being a consultant, like in your relationships, just like whatever you want to share.
Yeah, so I'm a perfectionist. I am recovering, we like to say. So perfectionism has two sides. It has a really positive place where you can actually get job done really well. People can trust you because you're going to make sure you do the best job possible. The problem is, and what I experienced, especially in my career, was that I was burned out because I was doing it all and I was trying to do it perfectly all the time.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, you cannot do that. It is not possible. You lose sleep. You start depriving yourself from the basic needs,
Hmm.
times with relationships and stuff. So I had to learn that after too many burnouts and too many feeling like I'm so numbed out that I needed to do something different,
Hmm.
I had to learn that my perfectionist self needed to take a step back. I
Okay.
couldn't let her rule make the choices right now. I had to practice how to be mediocre, and
Hmm.
that my mediocre best is just as good as somebody else's personal best.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was like a big part of it. The other part was like setting boundaries with my perfectionist self. So I couldn't let her run the world. So I had to be able to say, you're going to be perfectionist in specific areas of your life. You're going to try to do your very best in these areas, but then in other areas where it's habitual, it's a habit, it's automatic. You don't have to do it perfectly all the time,
Hmm.
and then being able to be willing to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that was a big part of it is like accepting that I'm a human being, not a human doer.
Yeah.
And so being a human being means that I'm going to fail. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm
Yeah.
not going to get it perfectly all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, And so taking responsibility for my mistake to then grow from that experience.
Hmm. Like I always say that good enough is like the new perfect,
Yeah.
Like good enough is the new perfect because sometimes, you want to get everything under the sun absolutely
Yeah.
perfect, and you're stressing yourself out and making it
Yeah.
a lot more complicated than it really needs to be. So I think it's also like taking a step back and really being mindful about what it is that you're doing. What are the goals that you've outlined, that you've set out to accomplish with whatever project or whatever task you're working on? And, just knowing that you're putting in your best work, and the end product, it's, you can always tweak it later, but just, be satisfied with what you have now, and I guess
Yeah.
perfect it later kind of thing. So
Yeah, I think sometimes is done is better than perfect. I
yeah,
think we wait till things are done or things are perfect, but the reality is done is so much better than that.
yeah, for,
One of the things I love on my podcast is that I get to be done with each product. I cannot sit around and wait for like it to be perfectly edited and perfectly, stitched together. I actually had to take a step back and say, okay, is this a good enough product?
hmm.
And I put it live, and it
No.
needs to go live because I have a deadline.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So yeah, and definitely setting deadlines and boundaries, like you said before, like setting boundaries is really, really important because when you set boundaries, essentially you're setting up yourself to win,
yeah,
essentially, and not sit down and be overwhelmed and be constantly working on one thing forever. So I think that's
yeah.
really, really important. So, how productive would you say you are? Like, would you say that like you mentioned earlier that you've been really mindful about your time, but like generally, how productive and how organized would you say you are?
I'm pretty organized. I didn't think that was a quality for myself that I could, describe myself. But the reality is that I'm pretty organized and I have systems in place and I'm very methodical about things. And
Hmm.
so I look at my schedule and glance during the week of what I have to do, what I'm actually eating too, what I'm cooking, because there's like all these different balls in the air. And so I have to be really clear, okay, here's what it's going to look like. And then being able to set the time to get it done. It was not this was not created overnight. This was a trial and error process.
Hmm.
But I realized that if I set systems from the get-go, then
Hmm.
I'm able to follow through from them, moving forward as opposed to waiting for life to happen.
Yes.
Like I have to take action and then just being able to trust that I can always make switches, I can always change things around. I can be flexible about it, but I
Hmm.
just have to set the system from
Sure.
the get-go.
Yeah, for sure. And I think being flexible is really important too because I like to tell people, like, listen, if you really want to get more done in your day and in your business or whatever it is that you're working on. Well, I only work with female entrepreneurs, but I will, I guess like drive home and drive in the nail until like they really get it that you have to create a like you have to have some resemblance of structure and organization,
Mhm.
but also being flexible and not overwhelming yourself, not having like 50 things on your to-do list,
Yeah.
essentially, what are the essential things that has to get done today in order for tomorrow to be as productive. It's just
Yeah.
being really cognizant about that as well. So I think that's really, really important that you mentioned that. So I'm going to throw this question out there, and you can answer however you wish. If you had to give advice to a young woman that she's torn between like being an entrepreneur and um, going out there and finding a 9 to 5 job that she could have been. Let's just say this woman is like a recent graduate. Like, what would be your advice to that?
I think not to get so caught up in the labels of one or way or the other, because I
Mm-hmm.
think you can actually be both.
Mm-hmm.
The way things are set up, you can actually be able to find a job. It doesn't have to be a 9 to 5 forever job. It can be a
Mm-hmm.
bridge job
Yeah.
and give you some of the semblance of skills, strengths, and being able to get the paycheck that you need. So then you can find clients because you want to be an entrepreneur too. So being able to start finding clients that you don't feel so desperate because they're not feeding your home, they're not paying your rent.
Yeah.
They're actually paying the fun expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're starting out, from graduating from college, I think that's a really good path to just start dabbling into both, not feeling like you have to do one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But
but also without interjecting there, but also I think it's important to like it goes back to managing your time properly
yeah,
too, because you don't want to be stretching yourself so
yeah.
thin.
And
Yeah.
that's the key. So you can just take the 9 to 5 and it can be a common 24/7 job. The same goes with the business, cannot be a 24/7 business.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to find a way to marry both where you can have a 9 to 5 job with clear boundaries so you're not taking home work home for you.
Yeah.
And the same goes with the business, not, being able to delegate. So being able to outsource certain things, whether it's to a virtual assistant or just being mindful of some projects are going to be projects can be done throughout the week.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really clear to manage your energy, manage your time, being able to say yes to the things that are important, saying no to the things that are just a lot of it,
Yeah.
which they sound really important, but they really are not. There might be time wasters.
It's
Maybe
like
saying no to time on Facebook feed because that drains your energy.
yes,
um,
and you won't even realize how much time has passed. I've
And
been,
that's actually one of those places where you can actually make time to write a blog post
yeah.
or maybe, and you can schedule social media. I think sometimes as an entrepreneur, you feel like I have to be in social media all the time. The reality is no, you don't have to. You can schedule it. You
Mm-hmm.
can have that. You can actually have a thought process of what's your tweets and what your feed and all the things you can take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can use the time more effectively to network with other people, to
Yeah.
be able to give advice generously, but you don't have to be in the compare and despair of the time suck of Facebook.
No.
So that's where you can actually find those pockets of time
Mm-hmm.
to do the other projects that are important. So it's getting clear what strengths or skills you need to build to
Mm-hmm.
continue to be in alignment with what you want to do.
And another question for you before we wrap up. So, like, I asked you a while ago about advice for college students. So, what advice would you have for a female entrepreneur that's just starting out her business and she has a job at the same time, but she wants to transition out of her job
Yeah.
essentially into entrepreneurship? Like, what advice would you give her in terms of like perfectionism, balancing her time, and being more productive?
I think the first, and it's such a feels like a no brainer. Start saving money, start saving, and so getting to in that practice of saving money just in general. Like even if you have no money coming in, like just save $1,
Mm-hmm.
just to build in your nest egg. It kind of like builds your foundation. In terms of time and perfectionism, one is done is better than perfect. So keep focusing on getting the product done. Don't wait till it's perfect. Don't wait till you feel ready to find new clients. You're never going to feel ready until you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you're going to mess up plenty of time. We all have done it. You're going to have flops. That's part of the process. But each experience is going to teach you to where you need to go next.
Mm-hmm.
So being mindful of those failures, those mistakes are just an opportunity to lessons that you're going to get. There are opportunities for you to pivot, change, or make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't land to where I was right now. I started consulting with, in general, like self love and life coaching for a while. And I was blogging about healthy living world. I was blogging about my healthy living journey. And that was 5 years ago. And I have obviously evolved into where I'm at today, where I'm talking about career. I have a podcast. I'm able to teach classes, and it's all because I had to make a lot of mistakes along the way
Mm-hmm.
and to prep up before I feel ready.
Mm-hmm.
So just taking the action, not letting that perfectionist voice holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
It's just time. It's time for you to step up, and that you can create a plan in a 3 to 6 months to like how I'm going to walk away from the job. Not waiting till you get fired. Just saying, you know what, this is my get out of jail free card day. I'm
I
ready.
like that.
I did it. I did it 2 years ago. It was the best. It was the most empowering decision I ever made. June 25th, 2013 was the day I got a walk away from a toxic job. And yeah, I'm working a different job, but it is not toxic at all. It is not stressful. It was my own choice. But that day is important because I was able to say, you know what, I choose my freedom. I choose my path. And so really building that
Mm-hmm.
to the place of you don't have to wait till you're ready. You can
Mm-hmm.
just get that done.
Sorry, I'm thirsty.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think that it's really important to really be truthful with ourselves because sometimes we we perpetuate this idea of being a superwoman.
Yeah.
and that essentially gets us super overwhelmed and frustrated and get absolutely nothing done. And then when things aren't going our way, we tend to like go back to that superwoman syndrome or superwoman tendencies and try to fix it all. And it's also important to like seek help.
Mm-hmm.
Get guidance. I
Yeah.
think it's really important to invest in yourself too, right? Because even if you're looking for a job, because you are, that's what you do, right?
Mhm.
You're a career advisor, and I think that a lot of times when people are looking for a job, they're like, why would I invest in a career advisor? Well, why not?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
how do you
Well,
expect another company that company that you really want to work for to even invest in you, right? So,
yeah. Well, I think it's just a matter of like asking for help.
hmm.
And you said it. It's asking, it's not even about just investing in yourself, it's asking for the help. It just even start from that place.
Hmm.
And who has the tools, who have the answers? Sometimes you'll find them on Google, but other times you need someone to be accountable. That's why you hire a coach.
Yes.
You get someone to keep you accountable getting things done. Maybe you need someone to say, you know what, how can I make job searching easier? That
Hmm.
it doesn't feel like I'm going swimming upstream. Other times it's about how can I make sure if I want to, for instance, like learn how to run Facebook ads, you don't have to do the learning curve all by
Yeah.
yourself. You don't have to be a victim about this whole process. You can
Yeah.
actually ask for help, invest in it if you need to, or just saying, you know what, hey, I'm actually receiving this help because I don't know the answer.
Yes.
I can
And,
actually, yeah.
and being okay with it, let's say
Yeah.
all at once.
And
Yeah.
actually, it makes you a better person. It doesn't make you a worse person. It doesn't
Hmm.
show you you're weak. It actually shows you you're strong enough that you can embrace that idea of help.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really good. And then to even go back to the perfectionism
Mhm.
aspect too, like has it affected like your relationships? Like, are you married? Do you have a family? Like, how has like perfectionism like shaped your relationships essentially?
So I'm single,
Okay.
but it has affected in many ways my relationships because I didn't ask for help. I didn't let other people in. I could be perfect and superwoman and not have any feelings or any emotions. I was always the receiver of things,
Hmm.
of like, what was your problems? I'll help you fix your problems. And so in many ways, my perfectionism self had to take a step back because I couldn't control other people because
Hmm.
that's another part of perfectionism. There's a lot of control issues there.
Hmm.
I couldn't control others. I had to let go of like how the other person's reactions are going to be. And then I had to let others see who I was and who I truly was as a vulnerable self, not as a perfect, empty shell of a person.
Yeah, like yeah, or like looking like I have it all together, like
Yeah.
and like I don't know if you know the work of Dr. Brene Brown,
Yep.
and she's saying that I was listening to one of her interviews with I think it was Oprah, and she was saying that being your authentic self is so much harder than people really think it is. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people will boast and brag like I'm real. Well, that's great, but how real are you, right? How
Yeah.
much are you actually showing up every single day and being your true self? Like you're not putting on a facade. You're not acting in a certain way that you think that that person might admire you for. Like you're just being yourself, and just I think
Yeah.
that's just
I
really.
think when I started becoming myself, because for a long time in my career in my life, I was this empty shell of a person. I show you it was perfect and it was shining on the outside, but the inside it just felt so empty.
Hmm.
And it took a lot of self healing, a lot of work with professionals to get to the place where I felt comfortable enough to show the darkness of it,
Hmm.
and it really feel those experiences
Hmm.
and then allowing that process to can I just be an open book? Can I be comfortable sharing who I was, who I am, what are my skills, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what are my
Hmm.
failures? Can I show the whole gamut of the picture?
Hmm.
Because I realized that I needed to add more richness in my life, and that's the way to go. If I just pretend to be perfect and how to know how she does it,
Hmm.
it's just empty.
Yeah.
It's like empty calories.
And without like you decide how you want to answer this, but like what were some of your insecurities about not showing up and being yourself?
Well, I was scared that if you knew that I had problems, that you would not love me.
Mhm.
I was scared if you knew what my real darkness, and at the time I was struggling with like a lot of like eating disorder and depression. If you knew I had depression, you would think I have a pity party. You will judge me for it.
Mhm.
If I show you like the parts of like that I'm anxious in a general in a general level, I'm always anxious. I always in my head I think worst case scenario, I am a fixer, but I don't show that that often. I tend to be pretty positive for the most part, but I also have anxiety, and so being able to share that and be able to say to to friends and like I need help.
Mhm.
I'm right now I'm up leveling my life. I'm looking for some things that are in a higher level. And so it is bringing up every demon that is out there.
Mhm.
The perfectionist self is like, who do you think you are for
Yeah.
wanting this?
Yeah.
So actually saying it here out loud, but also saying it to close friends and even to my therapist, it starts to really diminish its power,
Mhm.
that has on over me. Because I start to see like that's just fear talking. That's
Yeah.
just perfectionism talking. It doesn't mean that's the reality of
Yeah.
it. It's just a distorted reality. And
Exactly.
for today I get to choose, I get to have a choice.
Yeah.
I get to choose to engage in that power, or I get to just say, you know what, that's not really for me.
Yeah.
That's not who I really am. And
Yeah.
it is okay.
Yeah, and I think too sometimes we find ourselves like self-sabotaging ourselves too
Yep.
in the midst of all of this, and I think it's really important that we become really mindful of that and just own it,
Yeah.
and look forward. Don't look
Yeah.
back, look forward, and just keep moving
Yeah.
on.
I think once we start taking responsibility for our life and taking responsibility for our mistakes and our success, both ways,
Hmm.
it makes us not just a better person, it makes us actually in a place of power.
Yeah,
It takes back that control. And it really, people admire that because not everyone gets to do that. Not
yeah,
everyone actually has the balls to say, you know what, I'm just going to take responsibility. I made a mistake.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and even to taking responsibility for your successes, because sometimes when you know you do something really great and someone says, you did a really good job on that, or job well done, and you're just like, oh, trying to like downplay it, like,
It's not
oh,
a
okay, it's not a
deal.
big deal, it's like it's okay, but you gotta really like own that, right?
Yep.
So I think that's really important that we also own our successes as well, and really, like some people might think that it's boasting, but owning it and saying, I acknowledge it, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I think bragging, I think for a perfectionist self, the learning how to brag is a muscle that needs to be practiced over and over until it becomes second nature. It should become second nature for you to ask. If I ask you, what do you have to brag for me today?
Mhm.
You should be able to say something and be
Yes,
like, I'm proud of XYZ.
yeah,
Like it is not a big deal. It doesn't make you a bad person. It actually makes you a good person.
yeah,
That you're taking ownership of your happiness too. And
yes,
so bragging is okay.
yeah, yeah. I like that. I really like that. But I'm going to wrap this up now. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining me, Laura. I really appreciate like you taking the time to chat with me and sharing all this wonderful and great insight with the Free from Perfect community. Do you have any last things that you'd like to share before we wrap this up?
No, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to really able to talk about these topics and
No.
being so honest about it.
Yes, and just being yes, for sure. Well, it was nice chatting with you, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
okay, bye.